Alright, 303, the Council Strategy Committee meeting of Tuesday, November 17th at 3 o'clock is in session. Quorum is present, and I call this meeting to order. The first order of business is approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion and a second? All in favour? Opposed? Carried. Public participation. Seeing none, we'll proceed to adoption of the minutes of October 6th, 2015 on page 3 of your package. I had one item under 7. Councillor McLaughlin to source out grant opportunities. What does that mean?
Well, it's in the activities as well.
Yeah, same
So I
wording.
can cover it then and we'll strike it.
Okay, but what does source out mean?
I think at that time the age-friendly grants were topic of the day, and we were also talking about gaming grants too.
So source, not source out. Source out means give the responsibility to somebody else,
Well,
which might be a good plan.
I think it's more than, the discussion was more than just those two specific
the
grants. It
universe.
was
It was the
in
universe.
general
Yeah.
throughout the year to keep an eye
so
on
I can
grant
tell you,
opportunities.
I can tell you that if it won't be on the financial calendar, it'll be on my financial calendar.
Yeah. Oh, I would just suggest drop the word out.
Good.
Yeah, to source.
It's fine.
Okay. Anybody else?
Minor one on 6, and I think this is just as technical for those who do this. And it would be the second line of the verbatim, September 15, 2015 regular council meeting. So the deleted part should be the period, and they voted to endorse $10 a day, such that it would read the delegation requested September 15 regular meeting, and we'll bring it forward to the next regular council meeting, since
Yeah, we don't vote.
we don't vote.
Yeah. Yeah, we just decided to bring it forward.
So
Yep.
just remove, they voted to endorse 10 already?
Yeah.
Yep.
Will be brought forward to next regular council meeting, which happened about an hour later. Okay, good, thanks. Anything else? So all in favour of adoption of those minutes? And opposed? That carries. Action items arising, page 5. Starting with the first one, council expense remuneration, staff to update the policy statement regarding travel reimbursement. That happen?
Oh, no, sorry. That is a council, that's outstanding, yes.
Okay.
We've pushed it forward to a future meeting to be determined.
We don't need a meeting for it, we just need it to happen.
You
Well,
do need to approve it at a
You have to
council
approve
meeting.
it.
Yeah, we
You have
did.
to approve it at a council meetings.
No,
Yes.
I don't believe this was a staff issued policy with some council input, but there was no.
Council approves the policy.
Okay, fine. So that was, yes, I remember this from last council meeting, and it hadn't been worked on then. So we can strike this one, Shauna. It did go forward to the council meeting, and it's now in the council outstandings, action items. So that one can come out.
Well, it would come to a council strategy meeting. We would bring it to a council strategy meeting for discussion.
It's
And
still
then it would go
staff.
forward to, so I think it should stay on the council strategy.
Okay,
committee
fine.
To do, would come to a council strategy meeting, and then it would be brought forward to a council meeting for approval.
Now, this is, again is a shortcoming of the way we file things. I can't look up previous minutes because I've got a stack a foot and a half high. I don't know where it is, but I seem to remember we discussed it in a regular council meeting too. Did we not? Last
Well,
council
there were
meeting?
two parts. There was the council remuneration part in terms of the council bylaw, where we talked about alcohol and not alcohol. But this is actually just looking at the entire reimbursement and expense reimbursement. That's why it's a bigger scope. Like a piece of it was the expense portion on the council remuneration bylaw, which has since happened and been adopted. And there was an expense component
The
on
municipal
that.
office allowance portion, the 1/3,
Yes.
that's tax-free.
Yes, that's not what this is addressing.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, so that part's been resolved, and you're correct, it did go to a regular council
Okay,
meeting.
is that what I'm remembering? Quite
Yeah, I think
possibly.
so.
Yeah.
Whereas
Okay.
this is a bigger scope, it's actually looking at our entire expense reimbursement. So I still plan to have it done within the next 2 months, but.
Yeah, okay, good. It
then
doesn't
we
really
would-
come up that often. So.
And you had sent me a sample from the
Yeah,
private
yeah.
sector, so it's quite a big scope, and then we'll look at it, council will look at it, and
Okay,
then it would
good.
go to a council.
So we'll just leave it on here.
Yeah.
Good. Board of Variance recommendations, staff to research the Board of Variance members' terms of reference decisions for the October 6th regular council meeting. That did not happen. Although it couldn't have been the October 6th. No, it was, because it came out of the
It didn't.
September 15th meeting.
Yeah, it hasn't happened.
Okay,
And
but
as we discussed, that has been put forward to, I'm not sure when.
okay, that can come out of the action items for strategy committee meeting, though, correct? It was brought forward and now presumably is in the regular council meeting action items. Do you recall off the top of your head, Shauna?
But again, I think when it does come forward, it would initially come to a council strategy committee to allow time to discuss it and.
Okay, well, this one specifically said we were going to bring it forward to a regular council meeting for
Okay.
decision. And it's just not happened yet.
Yeah, it just hasn't happened, so it would stay here until, as a reminder, until it comes.
Okay, well, this one was, it was supposed to be for October 6th. It didn't happen, so this one is now meaningless. We can bring it forward again, I guess. I mean, I don't really care. It's just meaningless. Next, new business grant application opportunities. We've discussed that. Anything to report there, Ron?
Two pieces. I think we've beat to death the age-friendly stuff. So that's done, and I'm not sure, without saying any more, the gaming grant opportunity was not in this session.
Good. I think that's correct.
So that could be deleted.
That can come out, Shauna.
And also there should be a 7F under this action item. If you look at number 4 on the previous page, there was,
Yeah, but that was just changing wording on adoption of minutes. That's not an action item.
oh, okay.
And I assume,
Well,
I
what
mean, we,
happened to that action item though? There was where Ron took this bunch of KPIs and said he'll come back with it.
oh, is that what that was?
Yeah. That keeps on going in and out, and it's still
Yeah.
floating around.
It's on the financial calendar.
It's,
I saw it's on the financial calendar,
Okay, so
and
it's
I have
somewhere-
a
it's
question
some-
about the due date, but
okay, so it's somewhere.
Yes.
Okay, so it's not,
The documents aren't lost, they're coming back.
okay.
okay, that's correct. And this was
And that's
handed
on-
to you to bring back at a certain time. I'm going to look up when that was, because what's written in the financial calendar is not as I recall it. We'll get to that in a sec.
Okay.
Okay, so we've done item 5, unfinished business. There being none, we'll move to new business. A, finance work plan, page 7. Pam, congratulations.
So I've done the financial work plan, and I've sorted it 2 ways. I find this helpful myself, so I might thought it'd be helpful for you as well, just by date order, but then also grouping by activity. So these 2 schedules are the same, they're just sorted in a
Got it.
different way. So basically, kind of at a high level, the February, the big emphasis will be on the water, sewer, and solid waste budgets, because we have to, in February, we have to adopt the rates. So they sort of feed into the budget, but our emphasis in January and February will be on that, because we have to finalize it and get the utility billings out to the end of February.
Now, the specific around that, Ron, correct me if I'm wrong, is that we're going to be harmonizing parcel tax versus mill rate tax.
I believe that's the case, and let me get my glasses and my big microscope out for this. I think that the staff is going to work on that and do the synopsis for us.
Yes, and it's actually in here, communicate
Yeah.
changes in water parcel tax to residents. So there'll be, we've actually done the initial communication. We talked about it in the utility billing that went out last February. And then we'll have a whole process around this. The communication would probably be through e-post, through the mayor's message in January. This will come in a report to council in January about the best way to do it and a reminder of what the issue is. But a letter to Brunswick Beach, actual residents, and then I would do a report to council in December.
As I recall, this impacts 39 tax parcels.
That's right, 3940 in Brunswick Beach.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's the elimination of the water parcel tax. So for most residents, it would just mean that they would be paying that portion on their water bill now. It would be incorporated into the rates, and then they wouldn't be paying it on their property taxes, with the exception of Brunswick Beach, because they never were included in the water parcel tax.
Yeah.
So their water bill will go out just like everyone else's, but they won't get the offsetting reduction in their property tax. So it's really a matter of communication. I think it can be handled because basically the argument is they haven't been paying enough for their water over the years because the parcel tax predated Brunswick Beach.
Yeah, well, we can certainly catch up over the next 10 years, or whatever the time is that we're going to do it over. The only,
We're not doing a new parcel tax, we're eliminating a parcel tax.
yeah, but have the people who elected not to pay one time for their share of the Brunswick Beach water upgrades?
That's a separate parcel tax, and that parcel
Ah.
tax will remain, yeah.
Ah.
This was.
There's 2 parcel taxes.
Yeah, that's
right.
why, no, I had to go back and refresh my memory
Yeah.
as well, it's a bit complicated.
So I
but-
think on this one, I give the CFO the opportunity to do the full package for council to go through detailed background, and I have more on the, so I think that's gonna happen, targeted for January, Mayor.
Although
So
I would also exhort us to remember that one of the reasons I believe that the driver for parcel tax in the past was because it's deferrable, 55 plus.
One needs to be careful about a parcel tax. They need to be for a specific purpose, and they need to have an end date.
You know, these do.
So-
These two.
No, it doesn't, and that's why we have to get rid of it. It's
That's-
actually.
Oh, it doesn't have an end date?
illegal-
No.
It's an illegal
It's,
parcel
yeah.
tax.
Oh, I thought it had an end
Parcel
date.
tax. No,
Huh?
there are some that do.
Well-
This one in particular, we have to eliminate
Okay,
it. I
I
mean,
think-
that's,
It was an open-ended parcel tax?
yeah, and it predates the community charter. I mean, there's reasons for it, but
Okay.
we
Great.
need to clean up our books and get
See,
rid of it.
if I can command on this one, then that's why we need to have the full background
Yeah.
so that we can look at this and not go around in circles.
Well, I think we've seen many of this at least twice, 2 years in a row, but now we need to
I can
execute.
tell you this would be year number 3,
Yeah.
that it will be well, I can't speak on behalf of everybody, it will come forward for enactment.
So my
Okay.
plan is December 15th to do a report on that to council, just to bring us all up to speed
To-
again.
yeah, to- yeah.
And determine an action plan. To me, the big component of it is communication.
Yeah, you've said that,
Explaining
and I
it,
agree.
yeah.
You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. One or two things I had on the schedule, Pam, if I could just bring
Sure.
them.
Yes.
My strategic goal would be to have the Sophie report to the ministry a month early, which is May 31. Is that at all feasible? Other municipalities manage it. In fact, some municipalities manage to deliver their Sophie in mid-April.
Probably drive her off when the audit's done. We're
No, the
probably
Sophie-
last on the list to get our audit done.
This SOFI includes the financial statements, so no, we wouldn't
Yeah,
even,
that's-
our audit doesn't even happen until
Carl,
April
that's why
20th.
the big cities get theirs done right away.
April 20th.
So why could we not get our audit done a month earlier?
Because we're busy doing budget now.
And
It's-
also-
You have to make that choice, whether you do audit first and then budget, or budget and then audit.
Plus, we can't get the
We don't
auditors
have the
in.
resources to do both.
I requested an earlier date.
It's
and
simply
we're
that.
already
It's simply a
scheduled.
availability thing.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair
It's
enough.
availability,
They're the
but
big houses.
the financial statement is the big component. Well, even West Vancouver, I mean, it's all you can do to get it in June 30th. You have the option of publishing some of it ahead of time, like the salary information. A lot of municipalities tend to make that public around April 30th.
So the
Once it's
trade-off
approved
with the
by
bigs,
council.
Pam, then is that they're bigger, ergo we see why the firms are doing them first, but it's also longer.
Exactly.
So we're at the end of the tail for them.
Mhm. It's when they can fit you in. Like ours tends to be a 1-week audit, West Vancouver's was 2 weeks.
Oh, good.
But
The reason I'm
SOFI
driving for this is that we don't have an all-fired rush at the last minute to get the annual report done, which is contiguous with the Sophie, which we experienced this time, and I think we've experienced every time. In other words, I'd like it to be a more relaxed process. So,
Well, it can be, because really the financial statements are just the piece that slides in. Like, that's why the annual report isn't on here, because I'm waiting for the CAO, because a lot of the annual report will be driven by the CAO. You can start that earlier. Like, again,
Sure.
I'll use West Vancouver as an example, because that's my experience. The whole annual report was done, and we were just waiting to slot into
Yeah.
the financial statements. They were slotted in, and we published the next day.
so that leads me neatly into my next question. Should we not have as one of the other deliverable categories quarterly financials?
Is it the
It's
bottom?
there.
We do. We have
So-
quarterly reviews
Yeah,
at the
can see
bottom.
it. Thank you.
So your version.
Carl, on the annual report, second time around, as Pam says, we take the financial piece away, although we'll have the drafts of that beforehand. I've got it in my personal diary to come forward in council at the second session, that we decide what we're going to do for the annual report. I know that you're going to do your piece, and there may be some other, I think we should be farming this out, so in fact, that the financial slides in at the end versus everybody's trying to push at the end and doing redraft.
Well, I mean, as it happens, I've got the annual report. In fact, it's open on my machine as we speak, slotting in stuff as it occurs to me. Just back to the quarterly reviews. Where's the fourth quarter? The final.
Yeah, the fourth quarter, well, it would push us into 2017, so I didn't have it on here, but also it tends to be optional, well, not optional.
Well, I just mean the full year.
No, I understand that. What I'm saying is, first of all, it would be 2017 that it would be done, and I just did 2016 on here. But also, often you don't do the year end because you're doing your financial statements, and it can be confusing because if you do it before the numbers are final, then you end up spending hours explaining why the two are different.
Yeah, I understand.
Because your fourth quarter view is essentially your
But so
year
where
end.
do
Yeah.
we ever get to see the fourth quarter, the final?
It's
It's
The
your
invoice
financial
for it?
statements.
Financial statements.
It's your financial statements.
Okay, so when is that? What date?
The financial statements, the final financial statements would be May. And that's
May,
in the
5
year-end
months after the
preparation.
fact. 5 months plus.
Well, you'd
Yes.
see the first
Yes.
quarter and the year end at the same time. They're within a day of each other.
We get the first quarter before the fourth quarter?
Yeah, concurrent. January, February, March plus 45 days.
You see it in a different format. You see it in the format of the financial statement. So the reason I said it was optional, we could run the schedules. I mean, these schedules I set up so they're automated. My only concern is that you can sometimes spend more time explaining why when the financial statements come out, they're different because you lock down, the last
yeah, no,
thing locked
sure.
down are the fixed assets. But it is an option. I'm not saying no to it. I'm just saying it's not as useful. And just with everything
And
that
it's not as
happens in that
common.
first quarter, it's, yeah.
Yeah, you won't find
It's
it
usually your
that often.
financial statements.
But it does mean that we only know of issues 5 months after the fact.
No, we'll be keeping you updated on an ongoing basis. I mean, I can
Yeah,
do
true.
reports to
You can see
council
the
on the
cash flow
financial,
too.
because I'll be here for the whole time this time. I didn't start
Yeah.
until the middle of February
Yeah.
before. But just that actual having a meeting, this is the fourth quarter review, I think, and then you print the financial statements. You just present yourself hours of spending explaining why things are different.
Yeah,
And-
fair enough.
But I would obviously be updating council on a regular basis on how the year end is looking.
Okay.
Yeah. so no
We keep
surprise.
interrupting.
I want to go back to the annual report. Are you saying you're writing the annual report?
Yes, it's a report of council, and I'm drafting the annual report.
That's extremely unusual.
Yes, I've been told that.
And I think the council, not just the mayor, I think the council members will be inserting parts too. Or so it's inserting parts, putting forward parts.
It's completely appropriate to have a message from the mayor. A little more unusual to have messages from councillors, but you could do that. But the actual drafting of the report is
Well,
A
it's
staff
staff and, all the departments have got their piece too, that, I mean, Carl's not writing that, and nobody else is doing it, but, you know, relative to the committee work that's going on and things like that.
It's a report of council to the village, and I have long felt, back in my civilian days, that the report that we were receiving was not of any use, and so I'm trying to make it useful to the extent that anybody reads it. But it's then on record, so that somebody can go back to look for it.
But I deliberately didn't put it on here, mainly because in the absence of a permanent CAO, a CAO would pay up to me as the coordinator.
I think
They
that's probably
would
right. It's not really a
coordinate
financial
it.
document.
Yeah.
It's a different
But there's
document.
a key financial piece. I mean, it is where people go to get the financial information, so that is
yeah,
the
as
main
do I,
reason
yeah.
people look at it.
Yeah.
But like I say, we can do the financial statements independent. We also lost our CAO in the middle of, so last year was not a good example of how to do a annual report. But the new CAO, plus, as I think Councillor McLaughlin had said, each department, the fire department, public works, will all do a piece. And it'll be really a coordination exercise, but you can really have it literally all ready to go and then slot the financial statements in and print.
Okay, I have one final comment, and that was the KPI section. Council to agree on KPIs to be reported January 19th, 2016. Does that mean that's when we're going to decide, or that's when we're going to see them?
To me, that's when we were on a conclusion of the decision. We actually had a council resolution going back that we were deferring this until December. I've gathered together all of the emails I've got, and they're all over the place. Like, I think it will be an exercise just determining which ones we want to do, and then I would report on them monthly.
That's right. So you probably know better than any of us. There was a resolution, I recall that, and the resolution said
We were deferring it until
Defer
December. It
till
happened
December.
when we had no CAO. I mean, there was just
deferring the publication or further discussion
just
of.
anything to do with KPIs until the end of the year. So I slotted it in for January 19th. I mean, I just wanted a date in there. It could be the first meeting of January, but I think it's going to be an exercise, sort of a living document, so to speak, in
Yeah.
terms of tweaking some. We may report on some and say this means nothing. We think of other ones.
Well, again, you know, KPIs are not supposed to be a punishment. They're supposed to be useful information for everybody
No,
concerned.
exactly.
So, you know, I'm not suggesting we have this cast in stone a list that we then produce, after much travail. So, for example, we had a water consumption KPI that was extremely useful.
No, exactly.
How many hits a week did we get on that? 200-300 hits a week?
Yeah.
100? Yeah. Well, it was it was a lot. About 10 of them were mine, of course, but even absent mine. But no, that's gone away.
Yeah. No, but I agree. I think this getting our minds together. There's been a lot of
So-
emails. These are
Pam's piece, I think we have to go back to the universal document with the reams of emails.
No, if Pam's read, she's
Well,
obviously reviewed it more recently than I have. So if
Well, and I know she's, all of us have got all these, and of which, even with Helen with her stuff there with the sheet, that's barely touching the tip of the iceberg. I mean, literally, Carl, there's like how many acres of grass did we cut this month and stuff like that, so.
We
I
could,
mean, it's KPI is misnomeredly put into the financial calendar.
that's true, and that's also true. Maybe it doesn't even belong in the financial calendar, except for the financial
well, there
parts.
will be financial components.
it's all information, and council needs to decide which information is most important to you, because any production of information takes resources.
Well, quite frankly, Anne, I would like to think that staff would decide what's the most important information for council and provide it.
Exactly.
So a
Could
council
let-
shouldn't really actually be asking.
Right.
But right now we have bugger all, to use a technical term, and so there's some. Anything would be welcome at this stage, even the water consumption, which has ceased. But
It's being worked on.
oh, good. Okay,
So
that's
I
good
was
to know.
just giving it a week
Let's
or
park
two.
this till it comes forward for the big review then.
Yeah, fine.
Okay.
Okay,
Carl, I've got about 6 things.
okay, go
That's
for it.
Okay, no particular order. Thank you very much for this, and also the, actually, all my stuff's to do with your data. I'm gonna hold off, sorry.
Nothing on the calendar?
Other than, yes, actually, to go back, I'll glimmer over a few things, because I know that it's going to come, although they're not calendar, because I know they're going to go. Currently, we're seeing operational performance. This balance sheet is missing. For me, I'd be fine with the lack of a balance sheet. And Pam has said that she would do a cash flow monthly starting in January. So as long as I can see for me, as long as I can see the cash balance and the projects and the costs that are forecasted, I'm fine with that. So
That's really a balance sheet, though.
it's an indirect balance sheet. I mean, I don't need to know what our AR are and stuff like that. I mean,
True.
because I'm seeing it in a different way.
Yeah.
So to me, the cash flow is more important than the balance sheet.
Yeah. Although in May, when the cash balance is $1.8 million, what does that mean?
That's deceptive, though,
Yeah.
as we know. So I think that, actually, I'll ask the question. So is a balance sheet possible or not?
It's generally not done, a balance sheet on because of the assets. The assets
Okay.
are the key component, and
All
we
right.
just.
Well, I tell you what, I'd be happy to see the cash flow, and we'll go from there.
Sorry, just finish that. The assets are what?
Well, the key component is the fixed assets. So in order to run your fixed asset schedule, it's usually not done on a quarterly basis.
Because of the amortization?
Just the work involved of doing your fixed assets on a quarterly basis, and really the meaning of it, because you see the implications of it through your cash flow as you purchase those assets. And for a municipality, the biggest thing, especially a smaller municipality, is the cash and all the things it triggers when your cash balance starts to go low.
Yeah, I mean, where I'm going with the need for a balance sheet is to understand, I suppose, liabilities like accrued vacation liability or deferred AP or, cash-like items
Mhm.
that aren't cash.
Again, the AP flows directly into the cash flow. We list what our payables are, because that's the key component of the cash, because you need cash. Because everything eventually flows through the cash, and even large purchases of assets would flow through because your cash flow starts with your cash balance, but then you list everything, all your commitments, so it all
Pendings.
kind of flows through that.
Yeah, that's probably good enough then.
So the piece on that, if all of us mutually spell something wrong, as you were saying, deferred AP or something like that, then we can just do a bigger allocation on the cash flow.
What about things like pending litigation? Is that in there? Allowances or reserves
No,
or
but
things like that?
that's in reserve, so we taxed for it.
No, I mean just
It's under litigation?
yeah, anything.
Well, as Councillor McLaughlin said, if it was pending litigation we knew about in year end, it would be in reserves. If something were to come during a year, again, that would hit your cash flow, because at the end of the day, everything comes down to cash. If you have a pending litigation, there's a possible cash
Oh, so do
outflow,
you show that?
so you would identify it.
So we get sued because a tree fell on somebody's house. May or may not prevail. Do we show that in a cash flow?
You would, yeah, you
Oh,
say your
yeah.
potential
We would,
exposure,
could.
and the timeline, usually the timeline is so
Mhm.
deferred, but it would be potential, you would have it down below as potential.
I think staff and the cash flows I've seen in the past actually reconciles, let alone a large cash balance. Not all of that's from village, though it could be donations pending something else. Execution could be other contingency funds for stuff.
Fine.
Or deposits that were holding, such as building permits and stuff like that. So the big number, actually, when staff does this, will get skinny down. And then staff would also, I'm sure they're gonna do that, as it has been done in the past, do a recommendation where bare bones working capital should be consistent so that we can see where the red line would get crossed.
Mm.
Which leads to my next topic
Wait.
of conversation. Yeah.
Actually, could you just summarize that? So what did you ask for and what are we getting?
So what we're going to get, instead of a balance sheet, which is a snapshot on September the 30th, if we use this as a practical example.
So a balance sheet, when do we usually get a balance sheet?
Year end.
Once a year.
Once a year.
Year end is the
Financial
solo one.
statements.
Okay.
And Pam said it's, the utility, the value is not there.
Yeah, I agree
It's
with
showing
that.
the assets, and I agree, her time is valuable. But the village runs its affairs on a cash basis, so we go off the big cash position, which we would have, and then staff will show all of our expenses that would be normalized. That is our regular overhead, probably the quarterly payment, I'm trying to think off the mind, for firemen, probably some overtime hire expenses for the works department over winter. They'd also build in all the projects that we're agreeing in the budget, so they'll do the timing for all of that. So long story short, you will see on a projected monthly basis for the year ahead.
And will it be monthly, broken down into future
Yeah,
months?
Yeah, the ones I've seen are very clear.
Not so much monthly as it will be provided monthly.
Yeah.
This is our cash position now projected to the end of the year.
Okay.
Or further. This is probably, we project it until our next revenue source, which would be every July is when we get most of our review, and then the second would be the water. 'Cause
Okay, that'd
it's-
be good, because, you know, I don't need to tell you, an income statement by itself is only half the story.
So Helen, are you good with
Monthly
that?
cash,
Monthly cash flow for the year ahead.
No, monthly? Why not quarterly?
Well, it's probably something, I mean, we haven't done one for a while.
Yeah.
Quarterly may be fine. We could start, with
See how it
monthly
goes.
to see how it goes. It would be something we would be updating on an ongoing basis. We may find that from January, February, to March,
Well,
it doesn't change much.
things aren't
So we
that-
may just start doing it,
Certain periods of the year are very undramatic.
we may just continue to do it quarterly.
so
but
could we do it
start
in
monthly.
conjunction with the quarterly reviews? Is it,
Well, let's
Would
see
it
how it
be
goes
part of-
first.
Let's see, I
would it be
think
part
That's
of
gonna have
that?
to be added, so we'll have to,
Yeah.
I suggest we get the first one on the table so you can
Okay.
see it. So Pam said we can do it. So going through here, so we've dealt with the balance sheet, so Pam's gonna deliver the cash flow, which we just described that. I think part of the calendar here, which was on mine, which was short-term and long-term borrowing, which is a prospect for 2016 and 17. Pam's going to be making a presentation on December the 15th for that.
now, is that as a regular occurrence, whether we do make application for borrowing?
She's going to, if I can put words into your mouth, she's going to do the MFA borrowing 101, short and long term, so that when we go away for the Christmas break and come back in January, and we have the cash flow in mind, the short-term borrowing will stick out like a sore thumb, and that's also a decision for council to do.
Well, I think we understand the ins and outs of how it's done, because we did this already, and we elected not to apply in the current intake.
I think there's a lot of details involved.
Right.
I think I need to do the entire schedule in terms
There's a
of
timing-
what you would
timing
have to
also.
do. There's the
Timing piece
timing,
here.
and you have
Okay,
to go to
good.
the
Have like
public.
this is a 16-month out plan.
Yeah,
here.
that's what you
Basically,
said
that
before.
would be the plan, is to not just do the 101, but do an actual schedule. If we did decide we wanted to do the November 2016 borrowing, working backwards to seeing when we had, and we may find even at then there isn't time to even
Yeah.
do the November 2016.
Well, I think that's right. And so, Ron, I would actually suggest there's another category here, borrowings. And that's the drop dead date, and if we don't meet it, well, then we don't do borrowing in that session. And sometimes the answer will be no.
No.
We don't have to press any button.
Well, I think without putting a date on the calendar just yet, we're gonna get the back road information on December the 15th. We're gonna go away, we're gonna come back, have the cash flow, which will deal with the short term. The longer term is also gonna deal with the 2016-17 budget based on the infrastructure master plan and the advice that comes back there.
Yeah.
So it's a catch-22 here, but I think Pam's bringing it forward. It's on the calendar. Probably what we should do is once in the month of January, we should probably still keep that borrowing circled, because it's the only way we're going to pay for what we project.
Yeah, if we decide to go there. Yeah, these are go, no-go dates, and we just need to know when they are so that we don't miss them.
Yeah, and the reason I put it off until December was we might have the results of the infrastructure master plan now. If that gets delayed, we may know very early on that we can't meet the deadlines for November, so I wouldn't put it on the schedule. But if it looks like it's a possibility, then I would definitely put it on the schedule.
The November 16.
November 2016.
Yeah.
Boring, that would be the absolute
Just remind me, what's
earliest
the
one.
deadline there?
Generally, you need about 6 months ahead, but that being said, there's a whole lot of things you have to do before the 6 months ahead. So we're looking at having it finalized pretty much in March, probably, to meet the November. But
Even that's
part
gonna
of
be
that is passing a bylaw and going to the public. And that could derail it right there. You could go to the public and because
For the
my
AAP.
understanding was that's what happened with the community center. You went to the public about the community center and they said no to debt.
Yeah.
But that's for smallish borrowings. I think we're envisaging something bigger.
So just let Anne.
Which project, Your Worship, is it that you're thinking of borrowing for?
Well, as Ron says, potential infrastructure master plan needs, maybe red flag projects, bridges. I'm seeing rearing their heads, potentially. There may be some. We don't know.
Well, staff's on the infrastructure committee, so you're going to see the plan. You're going to. I mean, this is the big black box there, sitting for the.
Yeah, I'm not going to. I don't want to go off prematurely, but you know, the infrastructure master plan preliminary report-ins that we've seen have indicated. Well, we're going to have to do some research, but essentially we have 7 bridges in the village, and 6 of them are not in very good shape,
Exactly.
as far as we know. But I haven't seen the final report. And what does not in very good shape mean? I don't know. Are they going to fall down? No.
In order to support that borrowing, you're likely going to need to have your information around that project. So it's extremely unlikely that you could meet March.
We would have to
because-
do a secondary feasibility study, so at the very
Exactly.
least we probably
Yeah.
need an infrastructure planning grant,
Mm.
which those are soft targets, are they not?
Mhm. Yeah, I think the reason that Anne brought that up was you have to know your specific project in
Yeah.
mind and have to do a full, complete business case on it,
Yeah.
which then goes to Metro Vancouver for approval before you can even submit it. And
Yeah,
that's
I know.
the thing, that you actually have to know exactly what project you want. And that's probably the most challenging thing in terms of meeting the deadline, is you have to decide on the project first. It can't be, well, we might use it for A, B, or C.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
Well, clearly people manage to borrow money, so I suppose we can get our ducks in a row sufficiently to do that too.
So quickly go through on the calendar. For Helen's earlier think about the grant universe, it's on my calendar to make sure that comes forward. I mean, I don't peruse the grant universe as staff does, but I'd like to be able to ask the question, have we done that? The other thing, and this is kind of a bit of a soft thing, and I'm personally in favor of it, and I'm not sure quite how to put it here, but I also believe that within the calendar, date not specified, but I think Helen, because of the parking committee, may need some help in doing a model for what that might look like, whatever the plan is, don't know. Carl is just very fertile with his thinking, and quite candidly, he may need some hours there, period. So I think we should, I don't know that it's in the financial calendar, but we need to make some allocation for time.
So it's actually time, not budget money,
No.
because that's coming out of the budget.
Staff time at the
Strategic discussions.
well, yes, and who knows what that topic is. I mean, I've just picked Helen as an example here because of the parking committee. Maybe the residents will do it. I certainly don't want Carl to do it. But I think, and also the rest of council wants staff to vet the numbers too. So I'm thinking here, I'm not sure, And Pam would seek some guidance on this, how to do this, because to me, the worst thing is to have a string of emails coming in on the project of the moment, whatever that is, and staff is doing the things that they do all day, and somehow we have to find an allocation of time.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. I like that. Anything else?
I think that not in the two other final things on the calendar. One is, in the past we talked about, if I can be, those who would know what I'm talking about, let's call it debt rationalization, where previous borrowings were used for certain situations. And I think that is now recognized by council. My understanding from the CFO is we should just let that lie as it is.
That's not a calendar item, though, is it?
No.
Mm.
I'm taking that off her plate, though, so we're not looking for her to look at that any further.
I think we've discussed that sufficiently to say it's fine like it is, yeah.
The other one, which I think, Carl, is dear to yours and my hearts, is the, and perhaps I don't, for Ann, and I may have the wrong term, you know, fourth year in council, I mean, I have the thing right, because I'm thinking private sector, whatever the, I guess the reserve or the equity piece for the different capital buckets are, for the fire department assets, for the works, however their little part is, the general village and stuff like that, which I think it's really what the reserves or land or stuff like that. And I think that if I've got this right, Pam, that is normally done at the year end.
It would be done at the year end. It was a project that we had talked about, is taking the reserve, we have unallocated reserves, and putting them into the different pockets, what relates to water, what relates to sewer. It
Love it.
hasn't been done for several years. It used to be audited, and we used to show it on the financial statements, and we stopped about 5 or 6 years ago because it was no longer a requirement of
Mhm.
PSAB. So it's going back and recreating that. So it's not so much that it's done at year end. As part of the budget, we see what comes in and out of reserves, but we see it as a lump sum. So it was a project we had hoped to get to this year, and for reasons of being short-staffed, we didn't. But it is a project we would
this
undertake
something we
starting
could-
at year end, when we have the audit and then we know what the reserve balance is.
Is this something that, I mean, I'm not making a call for council here. It strikes me that this is kind of a, maybe not every resident wants to know what the answer is to the different buckets, shall we say, but is this something that we should show in your view, Pam? Is this something we should show in the annual report? And if so, can we get the auditors to do this work?
Well, the auditors couldn't do the work. It's a matter of it would just be way too expensive. It's going
Oh,
back
so
and
it's
just
you're recreating
recreating the what is flow into reserves. But it is something, it's not shown in the financial statements because it's not a requirement. But what I would like to do in this year's annual report, as I've discussed with Mayor Burr, is have a separate financial section where you take the numbers from the financial statement and show them in more detail.
So you
And
would-
that would be something we would do for reserves. We could show a further breakdown of reserves.
Yeah, I mean, I suggest you don't have to do it analytically. We can make a judgment call, and we put 100 here, 150 here, and 130 there. But we also have to be careful about that. And I think some of the stuff that will come out of the finance committee download is that you want a general fund because maybe you need to spend 900,000 on something this year.
So
You don't have to be borrowing from other reserves.
So Pam, then, with the audited annual year end, at about the same time in April, May, you'll have a capital bucket sheet for us?
Yes, and we can publish it. My hope would be to publish it in the annual report. Just going back to something you said, Mayor Burr, it is council's discretion doing the budget in terms of general fund, what the money's used for. But the reason I want to go back, if we've taxed for water and there was a surplus in water, that does belong to water. We will have to still kind of do a little
Couldn't
bit
agree
of
more.
a...
Yeah.
And my
I'm
understanding was
shocked,
the prior
but-
council said, for example, the gas tax was to be allocated to roads. I had thought, I'd heard that. If that's not the case, then fine, it can go into...
Yeah.
That's not the case. Thank you for reading my election brochure.
Well, I don't necessarily say that it's not a bad idea.
It does have to be used for capital
Yeah.
though, so...
Yeah, but
Yeah.
there's going to be lots of road...
No,
capital-
but I'm just saying
But that's
that...
the good, okay, so I think I've got my laundry list of stuff. So just to recap, then we've got the balance sheet, the cash flow, short and long-term borrowing, debt rationalization, the capital buckets, exploring the grant universe, and allocating hours for Carl and Helen. I can't see Fred asking for any, and I can't see Jim asking for any, and I'm fine.
Well, I would call those planning hours. So, I mean, I would simply suggest, Shauna, that we, out of this thing, we would suggest that we add 3 more categories grants, borrowing, and planning. To these ones here, 5-year financial plan, fees and charges, KPI, parcel tax, property tax, blah, blah, blah. And ascribe dates to those. Now,
You add
planning,
them to the financial calendar?
well, grants, yes, because there are grant deadlines. And as I say, in many cases, it's simply a go, no-go decision on the given
I think
lead up.
probably a kind of a staff, in my prior job, it was a declaration, but I don't think we need a declaration. But we need, let's say when we're doing the quarterly review or something like that, staff advises us they search the grant universe or something like that.
And we say no need. Same for borrowing, because there are borrowing deadlines, and we need, at every anniversary, I would suggest we need to examine, do we need this? No. And
So-
record that fact.
Would the hour, let's just think, yes on that, so let's put the hours allocated to council, would that be like under, that's not a KPI, it's a.
Yeah, I don't think that's a calendar
I don't
issue,
think
that's
it's
just,
calendar.
it's
Okay,
a
so I'll
discussion
say,
thing.
I'm just gonna keep it forward, so that in our budget chat, that's fine, and I'll just keep it forward.
I think a lot of it will fall into the budget check anyway.
Yeah.
Good, okay, thanks.
I'm not finished.
Oh, you must interject quicker.
Well, I was waiting for Ron to finish.
I'm done, sorry.
Okay, I just wanted to know, okay, so when exactly will we finalize the 2016 budget? Is it May 3rd? Is that when we adopt?
Bring my reading
Be
glasses.
prior to the
Well,
first
that would
reading.
be,
So when do we get the
that's the-
2016 final budget?
well, the final budget would be for the first, second, and third reading, which would be April 5th, but it would actually be completed kind of well before that. The final budget presentation to council, February 16th, we would be close to locking down the 2016 numbers
Oh.
for that, a part of the 5-year plan. Because essentially we do the 2016, and that's what has all the discussion and all the detail, but we're required to do a 5-year plan, but the 5-year plan kind of just flows from the 2016.
So by February 16th, we would have,
That's my hope, is by
Okay, good.
the end
Go
of
over here. So the budget presentation to council, yada, yada, yada.
because it's just
And
called
then it goes-
5-year, I just wanted to know
Yeah, but-
2016.
But the 16 is the first year and the 5-year.
Okay.
But
Yep,
basically, we do the 16 first, and I'm hoping by the end of February, early March, that would be locked down, and then the 5-year plan would.
Okay.
So
flow
we're
from
gonna get a
that.
first look at the budget in a month, December 15th.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that would be very preliminary, it'll
You're gonna get
basically
your first look
be
at the budget in exactly a month.
that would be basically the salary numbers will be locked down, and, which is a big chunk of the expense, and different key things would be removed, like the infrastructure plan, we know we wouldn't have that for next year. And then it gives kind of your base amount, and I hope from that is you'll kind of have a feel for how much money you have for the so-called
I like that,
extras.
that's good.
But it will be, I'm stressing very preliminary. It's just what we know, and then the budget process
I don't want it
starts.
any more than preliminary,
Exactly.
because, I mean,
Yeah.
who knows?
So that hopefully will be December 15th. And like I say, January and February, a lot of the emphasis will be water, sewer, solid waste, and just coming to council with staff requests and council putting their wish list together.
Yeah.
And the infrastructure master plan will feed into that in a huge way.
And for, dear to Helen's heart, for December the 15th, I will have looked at the council priority stuff and the Excel spreadsheet that I'm working on, which will have what I think is, reflects all of the stuff over the last year and year forward that the council members may have thought it was important as either a pet project, forward planning, or something near and dear to the village's heart, so that we can see what the issue is, see what the potential cost might be, and so that when we get together in January, we can zero in on it pretty quickly.
And the deliverables that we put forward in the annual report, would that be part of what?
Yep. For
In terms of the priorities.
For example,
Priorities.
better communication, okay, well, do we need a person?
Yeah, in
Yes,
terms
no.
of the
How much does
priorities.
the person cost? Yes, no.
'Cause
Poster printer.
No, I don't know. Okay.
Exactly,
I had
yes, no.
$5,000,
Yeah.
thank you, it's already in my list.
We don't need that much. But I'll tell you what is gonna be underfunded is the parking plan.
There we go.
Okay, just two more things. So
Sure.
there was previously mention of something to do with debt. Is that the same as a debt policy? And is that part of the borrowing?
Yeah, that's the borrowing, is that on December 15th, I was going to do a presentation on what the process is for debt financing, and then a big part of that will be the infrastructure master plan, depending on what comes out of that. we may identify projects that we will have to go out to do, and then we have to sort of a detailed schedule of when we could do the borrowing.
And then council decides what our policy is with regards to debt? Is that how that
Basically, I
works?
guess council would recommend if they wanted to go to the
Incur-
public
yeah.
for debt, and the public is a key component. You actually do need public approval to get,
To undertake that.
to undertake debt.
Debt bylaws typically are not typically, always are specific to the debt. They aren't broad overarching. They're specific to,
Yes.
we're borrowing X amount for this purpose.
But it's very unlikely we would know enough to go for the November borrowing.
That's my sense right now.
And the next one is 6 months after that.
That's right, twice a year.
Yeah.
In fact, I just literally today got an email with all the requirements for the spring borrowing. So that's.
Spring 17.
No, 2016.
Oh,
So, yeah, it doesn't take quite that long. But that sort of gives you a feeling of the timing. That's kind of the 6 months we talked about. Basically, by March 31st, the project would have had to be done, a business case, we would have gone to the public, we would have had a bylaw, and Metro Vancouver actually has to approve it first, and then it goes to the province. So it's quite an undertaking.
Okay, and at one of the previous council meeting, there was mention of an asset management report. Do we
Yes.
need to, do we have ones?
That would be something that would come up in the budget process. If that was something council wanted to look at, then we would put that forward as a business case, because it would be done by a counselor, by a consultant. It would be done by a consultant,
But
and we would
do
hire
we not
someone
need to know though, on, when we're doing amortization, what the asset or
No,
the
that's based on
depreciation?
our actual,
Yeah.
and so basically we take what we purchased during the year, and that is an asset on our balance sheet, and then we amortize it over so many years. But an asset management plan is looking at the life of our assets, kind of not similar, but ties in somewhat to
The
an
real life,
infrastructure
not-
master
yeah.
plan, is giving us a heads up that in 10 years you have to replace all your bridges. Your roads are looking bad, you may have to replace all your roads in the next 30 years. And just anticipating how you're going to manage your assets over the next
So
few
the asset we're
decades.
looking at, it's the actual, it's the value to date, so we factored in depreciation and, like this table.
It's actually not the value that we paid for it, it's what it's
Yeah,
going to cost
to
to
date.
replace it.
Oh, cost to replace it.
It's the
Yeah.
reverse.
Yeah, the financial statements are kind of historic. They take the reality of this is what we owned, this is what we paid for it, and this is how much we've depreciated. Whereas an asset management plan takes that as a starting point, looks at what the life really is going to be, and starts giving you a heads up about things that you have to replace. And our infrastructure master plan plays a role in that, because they're identifying things like the bridges that, because in the book value, you may say, well, there's another 20 years left for it, and hopefully that's somewhat accurate. But when you actually do your asset management plan, it teaches you how to manage your assets to make sure that all your roads don't fall apart and suddenly you have to replace them all at once.
But isn't that important?
Oh, it's very important, yeah.
And do we have one?
No, but this
Yeah.
is a big part of Nikki's world,
Yeah.
and Nikki's missing in action.
This is an emerging trend right now in local government. TCA only was implemented 2008, 2009,
Yeah.
something like that.
Really
And
recent.
asset management is only now just coming on to the horizon. It isn't yet mandated, and
Okay.
it's a big undertaking to do, big. So it isn't that you're suddenly way far behind
Okay.
here
Yeah.
on this. Yeah.
But you are right to be aware of it, and it is something
Yeah.
that should be on your radar.
It's a good thing.
Did I understand that, I thought I certainly remember Nikki talking about it before, is it on a list somewhere for next year?
I think it's in a roundabout way come forward, I think nothing in particular, but I think it was certainly on Nikki's review in line with the infrastructure master plan.
Yeah.
But I mean, between that and where we are with that and her situation, we're basically in nowhere land for 6 months. And given what I expect is gonna occur for the first 6 months of this year, 2016, we'll probably have this one as on the shelf, but carrying it forward for some time forward.
Should we put it on our master plan list?
Potentially, I mean, it's a big deal, they're expensive, I don't think you'll get much change from 100,000.
Yeah, this is be careful what you ask for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, exactly. The current best practice is to do a risk-based asset management plan, as well as a time-based asset management plan. So, it's been done in private industry, in the manufacturing industry for 100 years, but, something that we'll need, it's all to do with my request for a 20-year budget. In fact, it is the 20-year budget, more or less, because, what else are you gonna plan for?
But it's quite a bit more complicated than just a budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
Thanks, Pam. This is great. Are you happy with it? Do you think it's realistic? Is it going to... What have you forgotten?
Well, this is a nice segue into
What is it? that you-
capital letters here. This is completely dependent and assumes we are fully staffed. Not to state the obvious, but as I was doing this,
That wasn't obvious.
Could I be more subtle? Yeah, it is essential, especially the December. I mean, I've got a huge amount of work I want to accomplish in
Okay, well, so I'll ask the
December,
other
and,
side of the question. Are we adequately staffed to produce this timeline? Because I'll tell you right now, as I've already mentioned, I would like to see the final deliverable, which is the Sophie, moved up a month.
Again, going back to that why.
Yeah, what's the value?
Wiggle room.
Because again, it will not slow down your annual report whatsoever. and
No,
I
forget
just
the
don't
annual
think-
report. I just having experienced this once now, it was a mad rush. Every step of the process. Even here I see we have one special council meeting in order to accommodate the process. It may not be feasible, and I take your point that the audit just can't happen when it can't happen.
Yeah, it's not, the audit is just really just a small piece. It's
Mm.
just the pure volume of the work that has to be done in the 6 months of the year. To make you feel better, a lot of municipalities miss the June 30th deadline. A lot of them do, and we
I think
never
we-
have. And the actual financial statement deadline is May 15th. We actually have to send the financial statements
also
ahead
true.
of time.
Yeah.
And I have actually brought it forward. I've tried to push the budget forward a little bit. I don't know if you've noticed.
I did.
Past the statutory deadline now, partly to give us breathing room. If, I like to have, if suddenly we have an impassioned budget debate and we have a lot more scenarios than we thought, we do have some breathing room. But there's a huge amount on the first 6 months, and a lot of small municipalities actually don't meet these deadlines. Even West Vancouver struggled with meeting the May 15th deadline for the financial statements. They
When
frequently
did we do
missed
the
it.
public presentation this year? Do you remember?
When did we do it? Later than I have it scheduled for this year.
Really?
We
So
did,
we've-
we actually did it after the first and second reading, and I had actually brought it forward because
Yeah.
I preferred to do it before we actually are presumptuous enough to do a reading.
So here you have it on March 29.
Do I? Yeah.
I mean, that
I think
seems
it's about 3
pretty
weeks
good.
earlier. Yeah.
Because by that time it's nailed down. It's a done deal. Then it's just
Yeah.
all over by the
Yeah.
paper shuffler.
So in terms of, am I happy with this? I mean, I don't want to say this is cast in stone in any way. The statutory deadlines obviously are. We're locked into our audit date now, but I tried to build in some flexibility here, but it's my best guess of what the schedule we have to stick to get everything done.
Your worship, if I can just probably expand on what Pam very professionally said. I think she's referring to having a CIO in the position and having a
No, I
public
got that.
works manager back on a full-time basis. Those two factors will predicate Pam's
Well, that's
time.
partly-
And to answer your question, do we have enough staff? It's been so long without a CAO, and I mean that genuinely. I'm not being disingenuous when I say that. I've been without a CAO longer than I've had a CAO, so my view of the world, and I started in February, so I was already behind the 8 ball with the budget. I think in theory we can get this all done if we're fully staffed, but recognizing that as part of the budget we may be coming forward with some additional staff requests, because when Shauna was hired, she was hired 4 days a week, I guess 2 summers ago, and Mandy was here. And when Mandy left, Shauna filled that position, and we didn't fill Shauna's position. So we're actually running, we lost a 4-day-a-week position, and there was a council resolution prior to this council taking office, extending that to a full-time position. So you could argue we're down a position, but I don't want to just say, well, we're down a position, so let's ask for it again. But that is part of something we'll be looking at to see what our needs are. We saw it with the bylaw. Again, I'm doing a bylaw report for December 15th, but by doubling the bylaw officer's hours, we didn't take into account the staff time involved in that, and I'll be doing
In
a
processing
report on
the
that.
result.
It's, pretty much, Sean worked on that full-time for a
Yeah.
big chunk of the summer, just processing the bylaw tickets, sending them to ICB, sending the reminder letters, sending them to collections. And that's in no way saying we shouldn't be doing that, but I think for council to make, a proper decision that ties in with your parking committee, understanding the implications of how many hours a bylaw officer works and things like that. So I'm a long way of answering your question. In theory, fully staffed, I think we can do this, but as part of the budget process, we will be looking at perhaps asking for some extra
Well,
administrative
I'd like
help.
to assume that the staffing model that we're going to see in the budget is going to be realistic. I mean, many of these, as you correctly say, these are hard deadlines and there's no real negotiation on them. So we have to meet them regardless. So now the question is, what do we need to ensure that? and as you say, if we can build in some flexibility because of sickness or
Vacation, the
whatever.
occasional holiday.
Well, I mean, you know, that's obviously plannable. And there are certain weeks in which people are, I'm afraid your vacation request is not going to fly because it's just not going to fly. But so that's plannable. But sickness is not. Medical leave is not. Leaving is not. So some things can be planned for. Okay, so I mean, I think this is a lot more comforting than before, in that we didn't really have one that we were working towards.
Well,
Although we did. I mean, as soon as I think the second thing you did when you arrived was to issue a calendar. So this is next year's, and it's good. Sorry, Ron.
Thank you. I think the administration's pitching hard. Pam's taking a week's holidays between now and when she's presenting on the 15th, so probably would have even looked the date up sooner, but she's not going.
Good.
We've made good progress.
Okay, let's move on. It's 4 o'clock, and I have to be out of here by 4:30, if at all possible. Not that that's a deadline for the meeting, but it's a deadline for me. So, moving on to the financials, I don't propose, unless you tell me different, colleagues, that we go through these numbers one by one, nor do we necessarily need to take Pam to task for numbers that aren't what we expect, because that's not Pam's business. I just want to flag things that appear to be missing, lost, discontiguous, and so on, in terms of understanding. I presume, Anne, that we're going to get a chance to talk about the results, the financial results that we see reported here for the first time, at a different time.
Normally, this is when you would be doing them.
Okay.
Holding that discussion.
Okay, well then, let's see how it evolves, but let's proceed. So,
Carl? I don't know how many questions you have. I have about 20. And
well, I suspect they may be the same
well,
one. So,
and I, given the half an hour, it would be impossible. And I think the minute you go, the rest of us are out the door too. So I think if you want to take over for 15 minutes on this, and anything that you're not covering, then I can see Pam afterwards. I've offered to do the piece for the Friday e-post, and I'm going to be cover the high level. So I think, to your point, I'm not looking at the minutiae. The numbers are what they are, and I'd be happy to do it off
Okay.
the table.
let's do that. I'll try and keep it at a fairly high level. So the first is that that providing the full year budget number doesn't serve any purpose. Because giving us a percentage of budget when we don't know how much we're supposed to have spent at this.
Generally, you would anticipate being around 75% because it's the third quarter.
Generally,
with
although
some
for-
exceptions for front-end loaded numbers.
Yeah. So what's unless we adjust the budget number by, I presume we produce our budget on a monthly basis. We know we're going to spend X in January, X plus 5 in February. Are we able to report that number?
Generally, the budget does, especially with municipalities, it goes in as the lump sum because it's hard to segregate it by month, like your taxes come in July. So the general rule of thumb has been, it's what we did at West Vancouver as well, showing the percentage, you should be about 75%, and when you aren't, we explain the variances, like your taxation all comes in at once, so as of July 3rd, you should be at 100% of taxation.
Okay, so just for an example here on the first page on other grants in the consolidated financial page 12. Other grants were at 16.7% of budget. Is that because a lot is coming or because something's gone wrong?
Well, again, those details would be shown later on. Like I presented this first page because this was per the 5-year plan, and for transparency, I didn't want to imply we were changing the numbers at all. This is how it was reported in the 5-year plan, and this is a sum of all the other pages that follow.
Okay.
And it is basically a sum of your general fund, your sewer fund, and your water fund. So we have the sewer fund, the water fund, and then I have the general fund further broken down into all the different departments.
Okay.
So it gave you the ability to see the overall picture, because I think it's important that when people look at the budget, they see how we presented it in the bylaw. Sometimes it's restated and then you get confusing. It's like you think, I want to show that we're showing apples to apples. So that was kind of the purpose of the first couple of
Gotcha.
pages. But then we drill down, because obviously you want to see the detail, because further to your component of the other grants, that's broken out into several departments, so it's analyzed in each of the departments.
But it still doesn't
It doesn't
explain.
go well into 3/4.
Yeah, it doesn't explain why.
Okay, well, we'll talk about the
At all.
3/4 elsewhere then.
But it will in the later pages.
So I guess my general
'cause I-
overall question is, in presentation of BVA, we only have an annual budget number.
Yes,
Yes.
generally, yes.
Yeah.
And you generally.
So you
see
only know
25
how well you're doing at the end of the year, once
No,
you've got your
no,
final
exactly. You
numbers.
see how you're tracking. In the first quarter review, you should be at 25%. You can flag things right away at the first. If you're tracking below on certain types of revenue, then you can flag it right there. If you're starting to go over on your capital expenditures, 50% at mid-year, and you should be around 75%, with the obvious exceptions. Usually the revenue are the exceptions, because with the municipality, all your revenue comes in 2 times a year. You get your sewer, water, utility rates
There's
in
a
March.
There's a number of seasonal activities though,
Yeah.
or one-time activities that
Exactly.
really skew that as well.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the nature of this industry. You're not
Which
going to.
I'm hoping I've addressed by my comments when I analyze the
Yeah.
variances.
So,
So
okay,
the
fair enough.
first couple of pages are kind of the summary, but then you can drill in, like you can look, these are the intact water results, and then the sewer results, and then I've broken down the general fund. And
No, I
all
understand the
different
principle.
components.
It's more the result. So, I mean, if you look at general fund administration, salaries and benefits are running at 69.6% of budget. Does that mean that we've saved 5% on what we thought we were going to spend?
Statistically
No, but
speaking.
if you look at the comment, they're running favorable because we've had a CAO vacancy. You would
Okay.
anticipate they'd be around 75%. I'm explaining the variance.
So read the notes, in other words.
Yeah,
Okay.
I kind
And,
of assumed you would.
Your worship, that variance might disappear during my tenure here because.
Well, that's what I'd like
you're
to
paying
know.
me.
So it's not your cost, oh, because you weren't here
This is as of
There was
September
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 30th.
30th, so
Yeah.
your cost has not come in.
That's right.
Okay, fair enough. So then my next general comment is there benefit to breaking down the general fund into such minutiae of council, fire department, bylaw services, EOC, public
So
works?
that was my question for council.
Planning and development.
Basically, I set this up so it's automated. I feed the trial balance in from Maze, and it populates all of this.
Yeah.
So it's available, but this is the first quarterly review I presented to council. If you don't want that detail, I don't have to provide it. I just find sometimes it makes it easier when you see it, as you say, you were commenting on the overall consolidated page while your grant's off. Sometimes it's easier to then just see sort of the breakdown of what the general fund is.
Actually, look, I still don't understand why the grant is off by looking, so where would I find the page
We
that
haven't
would,
received it yet.
oh,
Well, but how you can see it on the different pages is where there's grants.
Where?
So the fire department had a grant, and that was the Whistler grant. So we received that 100%. And then
No, the variance why it's under at this.
Like
I
way,
know,
way-
but what I'm saying is it's
Yeah.
broken down.
Like way,
into-
way under.
She's looking at the
Councillor,
But, I mean,
the
for your,
biggest reason is the water grant. The Build Canada
Yeah.
grant of $256,000 hasn't been received, and it actually won't be received until 2016. So, so basically, like I say, sometimes that consolidated page can be misleading, but if you just look at the, sort of the breakdown.
oh yeah, so we, went to the wallet and we'll see it hasn't come in.
Exactly. And then you can see on the Whistler, in there's grants in different places. There's,
you really have to merge 8 pages into the one consolidated, which is the first one. So,
Well, what's the difference between consolidated and general? Like, what's the difference with these
okay,
two
so what the
pages?
consolidated is, the very first page is the sum of the general fund and the water fund and the sewer fund. So then if you turn the page, this is the general fund results. And then the next page is the water fund results, and the next page is
Oh.
the sewer. But then the general fund, I've further broken down into all the components, which is the fire department, public works,
EOC.
mayor and council. And as Mayor Bush says, that may be more detail than you wanted. I just thought to start with, I'd show you all the details. It's no
It may
extra
be
work.
useful, and if it's doable by the
Yeah.
press of a button, let's have it.
Yeah, I mean, I took the time to set it up this way, it's like it was
Yeah.
a huge amount of work, but on a go-forward basis, I've now automated it, and
Yeah.
I think, I mean, this is the first time you're seeing this, but there's a lot of, I did years of quarterly reviews at West Vancouver, and there's a benefit to keeping the format the same, because you get familiar with it, and then you start to understand it, because I recognize it's very overwhelming when you first see it.
So general is anything that's not water, sewer,
Yeah, I basically tried to
Yes,
put
water
the
and
heading.
sewer.
Fire.
That's it, no,
oh,
fire is in
So I
general.
tried on the heading, I
Water
tried
and
to say
sewer.
general fund on all the headings. So everything that says general fund, if you add those all up, it
Oh,
comes
I
to the
see.
general fund
Okay.
financial results.
We only have 3 funds. We've talked about adding funds. In fact, we've mandated one, the Fire and Rescue Fund. But there may need to be more, like a roads fund or a... I can't think of any more.
Well,
But-
it'll be different departments, but a true fund is just the water fund and the sewer fund, and they're required by PSAP to be separate because the goal is to make them self-funding. And you could argue the solid waste. I've never quite understood why the solid waste is included in the general fund, but I've shown that separately. And because you tax for them. You do your utility rates, so water has its own taxation, sewer has its own taxation.
By that argument, so does
Whereas
fire
the,
need its own fund. We also tax for fire.
Well,
But
that's,
it's collected in taxes as opposed to a utility fund.
Well, I see here it's called, the fire is called a levy, fire tax
Yeah.
levy.
and I've had a discussion with Councillor Bain about that on Friday. It's something we can look at for the 2016 budget. We really don't tax separately for it. We don't segregate the money. I think it was just a way of saying this is what we budgeted for fire.
Yeah.
But that's where we get into the trouble of them thinking they have a surplus and a deficit. So I think there's advantages and disadvantages to showing it that way. It's really just a notional display on our taxation. We don't really.
Okay, well,
tax
we're not going to have that
separately
debate now.
Yeah.
My understanding of the council resolution was we were going to institute a fire fund. That was the resolution. That was my understanding of the resolution anyway. And if that's not your understanding, then we're going to need to talk about that separately.
Your worship, was that not the donations that are received?
No. No, I was very insistent on the wording of the resolution to be absolutely sure that it mentioned a fire fund. I
Which
subsequently thought it should
interpret
be
as a
fire and
savings
rescue.
account.
We understood that to be
Yeah.
the
The separate
the
publication of
fundraised
donations.
monies.
Okay, then I'll go back and listen to the tape to absolutely sure that I made it clear. But as I said, we're not going to talk about that now. We're talking about the presentation of the
I
budget.
don't think we should be talking about that now, because I don't think it, so, but I think to what Pam had said earlier when she's doing all of the funds for the year end, I mean, obviously we can't do it for this minute, but January 1st will be the theoretical new
It would be the start anyway,
Yeah,
exactly.
So I think we all have our understanding on what that is.
Okay, so fine. So one or two more other comments, I like the presentation as it is in terms of the level of detail, the breakdowns. I think let's keep it
Yep.
and see what happens. Although, you know, whether we need to actually present a $20,000 bylaw services budget separately, I don't know. But that's,
Static.
yeah, it's useful. It's useful data. So one or two small number issues, Pam, and that is, I see from the fire department report that's in the regular council package, they report having recovered $26,907 from the province. Yet on our page 18, we only show a recovery of $5,400.
Well, they initially did the paperwork, but then that has to come to us. We actually have to file the PEP claim, and that number we get in the fire report is unaudited. I mean, that's just a number they put in, but we don't.
Well, let's assume that they've got it right. 26.9 versus...
Then that paperwork has to make it into the office.
So it's just a timing issue.
And then we
Well,
have to actually
Actually,
file the report.
I asked Hyman about that, and he says they send it in every month.
No, and they do, but what I'm saying is they've calculated that number, it comes in, and then we have to do the PEP claim.
Sure.
And then we get the money back, and it's recorded on the cash basis.
So, sorry, where is the PEP, so in revenue, where is the PEP claim line?
Recover from province.
Isn't that,
No,
is that not coastal fire?
No, it's
That's number one,
the,
which is province for wildfire assistance. So,
It's in the call-outs, I believe.
So Pam, on this, where Carl and Helen have gone here,
Right.
so we've got a disconnect between one arm and the administration here.
It's not so much a disconnect, as I was saying, it's on a cash basis, so we get that paperwork, we file the PEP claim, it goes in, and then we receive the money, and it's when we receive the money that it gets recorded
Okay.
as
So
revenue.
is
We
it
don't set it up, we
receivable,
don't set it up as a receivable.
So it's not as
No.
it's a no.
So there can be
it's
like a
disconnect.
2-month lag, even if we do it the day
Yep.
we get it.
So in general, are our accounts accrual basis or cash basis?
We accrue at the year end, but we sort of do a combination, but because of what we have with Maze, we don't have a lot of the modules, and a lot of it is the cash basis, like building permits, things like that. We record the building permit revenue when we receive it. And with the call-outs, we record the PEP claims when we receive them, but then at year end, if there was any outstanding, we would accrue them.
So specifically on the fire reimbursements, how would we ever know if we'd lost anything? If we don't do it on an accrual basis, because we only record the cash when it trickles in. How do we
We
ever know?
do,
if
but we have them all there. We have the claims that we filed, and then we reconcile it when we get the cash in.
It has to go
And,
from there to here.
And
Okay,
we
so,
have to,
yeah.
we have all the
There's the
backup.
gap right there.
but we reconcile every claim.
Oh, yes, of course. And we
Yes.
have all the backup for the auditors, because the auditors audit it, and,
Okay, fair
just
enough.
rather than set it up as a receivable, it's just, it's a lot of extra work, for a small office.
Sure,
and it
absolutely.
tends to
don't.
be
Yeah,
more.
tell me.
But you are correct, at year end, we absolutely accrue it, and that's again, one of the reasons why year ends take longer, is because you have to,
It may be
do
useful
all
to
your
say in the
accruals.
presentation to alleviate that question is to say present it
can.
on a combined cash and accrual basis or something, so that to explain why certain numbers wouldn't add. Okay, one or two more. In the capital expenditure schedule, page 25, there was the phone system, which I believe was added to the budget.
I'm sorry, where are you looking?
Page 25,
Sorry, I'm in the wrong thing. What is the heading?
phone system.
No, what, is it administration?
No, this is the capital expenditure
Oh,
schedule.
the capital, sorry. Yes, so the question was?
Phone system.
Where do you see it?
It's not there. No, I don't see it.
Ah, gotcha.
Oh, the phone system isn't on here, because this is to budget.
We added it to the budget.
Yeah, we haven't, as of September 30, we haven't
I mean,
bought it
can I-
yet.
It was
So,
after September
yeah.
30.
So
That's
it would
simple.
appear as,
Okay.
it would appear as an unbudgeted item when you see it, but,
Okay. And my only other question, before I defer to my colleagues, is why do we show the fire department capital maintenance line and then a separate fire department capital item of Whistler Grant fire equipment?
we showed it separate because it had independent funding. That was a grant, and when we put it in the budget, we put in the grant and we put in the asset, and they were contingent on each other. So it's more just for transparency, it was kind of a separate item. Whereas the other is just their general capital maintenance that they get every year. And that's how I explained the variance, that although it looks like we went over budget, it was fully reimbursed. We just did an estimate of 11,000 in and 11,000 out, and it
Mhm,
ended
I
up being
remember.
13,000 in and 13,000 out.
Yeah. So I mean, this is the one schedule where I can see that the performance to budget doesn't necessarily have to be 75% because maybe
That's
we haven't
right.
spent it yet, or in many cases it is 100% because we have. So yeah, I fully appreciate the difficulty in presenting third quarter budget numbers. I'm just sort of wondering how useful it is to present numbers that may or may not be meaningful.
I think the meaningful is the actual, what we've spent to date. It flags
That's
if
what I'm
something's
saying.
over budget, it can flag if something's under budget. The water contingency, for example, we haven't spent the full 60, but
Oh, that
may-
was my one other question. Thanks for
but
flagging.
that actually may be good, because as we know, we already know we're gonna be short in the DFA, only getting 80%, so it can be
Yeah.
good when we're favorable on some of the capital.
I recall, but I didn't have time to look up because I would never been able to find it in a foot and a half of paper, that you've reported to us before on the water fund,
Contingency, yeah.
the more spending than you're showing here on water contingency line.
Again, that's probably, this is at September 30th,
Oh,
and I
yeah,
believe
okay.
that
Yeah,
was,
yeah. Okay, good.
was
Okay,
after. And also, this is, as I had mentioned in the note, which I'm not sure you read,
which page?
the capital. This is just the capital portion. There was actually an operating component of that as well. So some of the costs are in the operating. And with the Public Works, just the overall thing I would say with the Public Works, because Nikki wasn't here, I wasn't able to go over the numbers with her. And with her having missed so much time, we might have to, we were sort of under in one area, the water contingency, but then we're over in PRB. So we're thinking maybe some of those costs need to be moved. And that's actually one of the, I mean, you see the end product of the third quarter review, but really one of the best parts of it is analyzing the numbers and
Mhm.
doing your adjustments, because you find miscodings and you find just
Precisely.
things and you can tweak them. And
Oh, I thought,
so
is that
internally
how
for
you
staff-
actually do it? That's what I do when I look at my personal P&L. I say, oh, that's not right.
Yeah, well, they know exactly. There's a lot of work that goes into this beforehand, which I find, I mean, it was bothering me that we hadn't done this as well. I know you had wanted to see it, but as an accountant, I was, we need to start looking at these numbers to see how we're
Don't you have
tracking.
to pay a fine into the Christmas fund, the accountant's Christmas fund?
Absolutely not.
I think it's great, Pam. I partly appreciate the effort that went into this. So
You
Hardly a-
I was going to say partly.
Yeah, from afar.
no, because I don't know all of it. I have an inkling. I don't have a complete understanding of the effort that went into it.
Yeah,
It's
It
a
was a lot.
translation thing, yeah.
yeah. He's saying he's very grateful.
Thank you.
Isn't that what I just said?
Yes.
Well done.
Did you have any questions, Councillor Watterson?
Just under the capital expenditures,
Yes.
because there's lots of notes. So number one, fire alarm is outstanding. Is that now, are we completely done on the community center renewal?
We are, when we have the fire alarm done, which Andrew has been, I was going to say pulling his hair out. I didn't mean that the way it sounded.
Okay.
Andrew has been spending a lot of just trying to get the quotes, so we have someone in place, and they will be doing it at the end of November, and that is the final outstanding piece.
Has he had the quotes resent to
the-
Village of Lions Bay
He has, yes.
rather than
And,
Harrier Construction?
And the big thing is
Don't want any-
the invoice will come to Village of Lions Bay. And that work is, I believe, scheduled for the end of November, and that is the final piece. So my goal is by the end of the year, not to have to rebudget the community center once again for outstanding items.
Because when the play school did their little upgrade up there, they said that part of the money they spent was to bring the ramp to code, and so that would be a new thing.
I haven't heard
No?
anything of that. The ramp didn't need to
That's
be brought
I,
to code.
yeah. I said I don't know. I didn't
It
hear.
was to code, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so
Do they
you
not
haven't-
mean the step?
the step or the
was-
ramp or something
They had
outside.
to put the step, but again, the step was to code. It was just for their purposes only.
Okay,
The
so-
play school, they needed the step.
The play school
So-
thing's done, and that's been resolved.
Okay,
And
I'm just wondering if little things like that might come up, but no.
No,
It's
that was
good.
actually something they had to do to meet their requirements.
Okay,
and
so it's not because we weren't meeting code. Okay.
They did have to put a couple of smoke detectors in,
Yep,
just
and
to
that we
tie
knew
them
about
over
it, yeah.
until, but I mean, a smoke detector isn't that costly.
And then number 3, the burn building. So is
Yes.
this a net same? Did we use the money from their account to cover?
We have, the work was funded through their separate account, but it was unbudgeted. They'd come, I know we've had that conversation.
So now it's
but,
zero.
no, it's irrelevant what bank account the money comes out of. It
No, I'm
comes
just
out of-
wondering, is
But
it then,
you
does it show on their, does the,
No, because that would be a balance sheet item, like they
Oh.
Yeah,
use
this is
their own,
capital.
they own the separate cash to pay for it, but in
Okay.
terms of the capital, this is now capital, but it was not, it was funded.
but is the expense under the fire department general fund?
No, because that's just operating expense.
Okay.
So that would be separate. This
I
would
get
just
it.
be the capital, right? So the burn building was unbudgeted, so that's where there's no
Okay.
budget showing. They did use the cash from their savings, which is a habit, and that account is down to zero, if that's what
Okay.
you're asking. They literally used
Yeah.
every penny from that account.
Because they're always asking about it, so.
And that's what was spent, 36K.
To be determined at a later date. I've been getting the receipts in, but I have to exactly figure that out, what was spent.
Anything else?
No.
Helen?
Oh,
Ron? Lay it on us, buddy.
20 questions.
Here's what I suggest is that if, with Pam's agreement and Anne's blessing, if I can meet with Pam for half an hour tomorrow to confirm what, like, the answers
I'm actually not in tomorrow, I am on a course.
Thursday.
Although, just for transparency, shouldn't we get as many of those questions here?
It's, I just want to, I'm leapfrogging to my submission to Carl for Friday. Where I'm going with this is, I guess do we receive the statements tonight? How do they go into the public? Because we probably put them on the website. And I was thinking if I think Carl's of the same mind, so that if we put the information onto the website, use from the desk of the mayor as the lead up to it, I said that I would do 5 or 6 bullet points on it to refer back to it. So really, I'm just going to get you to confirm my
Sure.
5 or 6 bullet
Absolutely,
points. So
Thursday would be fun.
I think what I would need is you to confirm, and just because I happen to have 10 on the first page, don't get a thing. So for the sake of argument, I'd probably just go through the major ones of those, which are then refer back to these other pages, because non-financial people are going to look at this. But then if I could also get either you or Sean, if it's just me and the noting to the one to the side, and I'll just basically do what you did in 2 bullet points down.
Although if we do the whole package, those variances are explained in
I
greater
know.
detail. We want them
Good,
summarized
big,
again,
big picture stuff.
which I understand would want for your narrative, but you would want them on
Yeah.
there as well?
I'm just using, because everything drives to this page,
Right.
so I'm just gonna explain the differences that I think.
But some numbers are going to have multiple notes associated with them.
Well, that's okay, it'll be refer page so-and-so, and which will go back to the fund or something like that. I mean, I really didn't want to do a lot of verbatim.
Okay.
These notes, they don't come out automatically, right? You then have to, you have to get the thing that spits out of the system
Right, and then I
and then
can-
annotate
Yeah.
manually.
Well, I have to analyze it, and then as I analyze it, I write my
Yeah.
So,
explanations.
not to make them out of Walmart, I'm gonna synthesize this down to 5 or 6 major bullet points, cover them, and there we go.
Yeah, consolidate the note. I mean, the notes are everything, obviously.
The
as
notes
we
are
all know.
everything,
Yeah,
but,
as we
and
know.
Pam's done enough here, and you could ask questions on every line if you wanted to.
Sure.
but, I mean, let's not.
Well,
So
actually, I didn't have too many questions. It was very apparent almost immediately, and I did read every note, by the way.
You admitted that you made a comment that I was supposed to read the notes, so from that I inferred perhaps you had not read them.
I did read. Because
So-
you know, we all know the devil's in the notes.
Yes.
Purpose of my meeting with staff is to make sure that I have the right answer, it's there in short format,
Right.
and I do a little bit of window dressing with you and Sean if necessary. It goes to Carl, it goes out on Friday.
Right.
So, Councillor McLaughlin, this being that this is a committee of the whole,
Well-
at this point,
Well, that's where
those
I'm also
notes-
going here, do we need to push this to tonight?
Well, you have council's mandate on all matters financial, so it's up. It's
Well, then I'll
up.
be
It's a scheduling
reporting- Then I'll
issue.
be reporting that we've received it, strategy tonight, that we received it tonight.
We can receive it tonight, but
Receive it,
if there's
and
work
then
to be
I'll
done,
doing a commentary, and there we go, done.
we can do a separate resolution to empower you to discuss it. But I don't think that's
Well,
been
I
done
don't-
already.
It's we're already done, so I'll be writing on your, to you.
I just
But it-
didn't, it's okay, I'm so
It
sorry.
it would need to go to council as a whole to be received.
To be received?
Sure.
As
Okay,
opposed
fine.
to simply at a committee of the whole meeting.
Okay, I'll ask under my council reports tonight then.
Yeah.
Yeah, just for, for the consolidated, because I have all the explanations following, I'm just concerned it may be confusing if I then have notes here, and literally I'll just be
I'm
cutting and
thinking
pasting the
of
same.
Somebody who has 30 seconds to understand the village finances, I'll be hitting very high level.
Which I understand in the narrative, I'm just concerned by putting the comments on that way, it might make it more confusing, I'm not sure, just,
Let me
there wouldn't be
think-
enough room
I'll think
here.
about it while you're away.
Okay,
And we'll,
definitely for the narrative, and we could meet on Thursday to
Yeah.
talk about the high
Well,
level
I-
narrative. But
I
I'm
should-
thinking this package might be complete as it is, and then. just-
agreed,
yeah,
but that's gotta be the lead-in, because Carl can't say
Yeah.
refer.
Yeah,
That's true. Although, will it be published on the website?
It has, yeah.
All
so
of these are published
It's
on the
already
web
on.
already.
It's gonna go, so it's just be a transcript.
Yeah, but it's very hard
So
to
you'll
find.
do
I
the
mean-
go to the link thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I'm going with that. Yeah. So because there are going to be people who are going to want to delve into every down to the penny,
Well, fine.
and then the details available. Here it is. It all adds up.
that's how I see it, the e-post with your narrative, and the link would be, I believe that this is a separate PDF, the link would be to this report.
Yeah.
Sorry, Pam, I wanted, what is internal allocations?
Oh, the internal allocation is because the water and sewer fund, as we discussed, was separate, but it's actually staff who work there, like the water, people who work on the water or public works employees. It's an estimate of the allocation of their time.
So public works would be also under administration?
They are. No, not under administration, they're under water and sewer. So water and sewer.
So I'm just,
So this is income. So this is basically the general fund being reimbursed from the water and sewer fund for the cost incurred by the general fund staff. It's very, it's almost a requirement, because water and sewer have to be self-funding, so they have to reflect all of their costs. But we don't have separate individual water employees. They're actually paid from the general fund. So it's just an estimate of the time, and it's just so that when we tax for water and we tax
so
for sewer.
anything staff does with regards to water and sewage goes here? So not necessarily
Yes,
public
but
works
it-
people?
But it's the administration time, the
Yeah.
actual public works salaries go to the water, we're able to code their water time. But it's all the stuff we do here,
Bills
that's
and
for
taxes.
water
Exactly,
and,
collecting them.
Yeah,
to
I mean,
fund
it's
them.
definitely just an estimate, and it's probably something, again, we could add to the list to be re-examined, but it's a requirement for the water and sewer fund, because they're supposed to be self-funding.
yeah.
And we're supposed to tax, we have to make sure we've encapsulated all of the
Polishing the water
costs.
tanks,
Mhm.
buffing the brass.
That's not
Taps.
that's not
I think we're
admin.
talking about
Wow,
Office
it doesn't.
staff.
I should-
Publishing water consumption graphs.
Yeah. Is that being charged to the water budget?
Darn right. No.
That's a KPI.
An estimate of the time.
Yeah, your worship.
Oh, sorry. That's
No, no.
Well, as
nice
you know,
segue. I
I
happen to say it. And
can talk about beans all night long. Well done. It's beautiful. I'm so happy.
actually, so am I.
I bet.
I'm quite serious. I
I
was
bet.
just as anxious as you were about getting it done. Accountants like to publish their numbers.
Okay, lovely. Moving on to item number 8, public questions and comments. Where's Fred?
So that's course.
Oh, that's right.
I'll be here tonight.
Okay, good comment. Thanks. Motion to adjourn. All in favour, opposed, carried. See you in a little while.
So just,
Oh, in fact,
consent.